1,000 residents and 1,300 businesses. And whereas the city employees, numbering over 325, strive to achieve this mission on a daily basis, providing a wealth of services and programs. And whereas the 2011 Citizen Survey reaffirmed employee success in meeting our constituents' expectations. And whereas it is important to recognize quality customer service, employee contributions, teamwork, and organizational success. And whereas the City Council of the City of Commerce City wishes to recognize and reward employees for their dedicated service and outstanding achievements, now therefore, on behalf of City Council, I hereby proclaim the month of August 2011 as Employee Appreciation Month, thanking the city employees for all of their hard work and dedication to the City of Commerce City. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the proclamation. Ms. Teeter?
Yes. Move approval of the Employee Appreciation Proclamation.
Ms. Snyder?
Second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the proclamation. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I request a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Congratulations to all our employees. Ms. Bauer, would you ask me about the proclamation when we're done with the meeting tonight? I have a suggestion. Okay, thank you. Okay, there were public comment rosters were made available at the table at the entrance to council chambers for those who wish to address council. One was for non-agenda items, a second for action items. When I call your name, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. You're reminded that each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. City Council is reminded they are not to engage in discussion or debate, but may ask clarifying questions and express concern when appropriate. City Manager will generally assign staff members to get the necessary information to solve issues. We have just one person on the list for tonight, and it's Esther Hall. Good evening. Nice to see you.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mayor and Council. I'm bringing forth some concerns that I've had with our city for many years, and that's with our recycle program. And I was invited last Tuesday night to visit and be a part of the recycle committee. At that time, I also vented some of my concerns. And the one concern is the recycle center on Highway 2 on 6450 Highway 2, where the recycle center is, and the misuse of dumping illegal items in that. And it was brought up at the meeting Tuesday night. Other people have also reported illegal dumping. And it becomes quite an issue. Our city workers are phenomenal at coming and bringing trucks, sometimes 2 trucks, to pick up the illegal dumping around the bins, not counting what's inside the bins. But I find that there seems to be no accountability for this illegal dumping, therefore it's continuing. And I know the city is paying up to $300 every time they have to pick up loads full and fill a dumpster. It's our taxpayers' money going out to rid illegal dumping of various items. And so that's my concern, and I was kind of tossing around the thought of how to resolve some of this so that our city appearance is better. So I wanted to bring that before council with my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Flannery, would you make sure that you have whatever information you need from Ms. Hall?
Absolutely, and I have had some conversations with the Historic Society about that specific issue, and Mr. Cordero and Mr. Mays are taking a look at that.
Terrific. And Mr. McEldowney, yours is from before, wasn't it? Okay, thank you. Okay. Next item is a public hearing. There's one public hearing on the agenda for tonight, and it's Z 539-91-11. I want to start opening the public hearing on Z 539-91-11. Will City Manager Jerry Flannery please invite staff up to review?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jenny Axmacher is presenting.
Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council. Tonight's case is Z-539-91-11. The applicant, Schlumberger Technology Corporation, who's also known as Pathfinder, is requesting to remove a zoning condition to allow for outdoor storage. The property is currently zoned I-3 with conditions and is located at 104th Avenue and Highway 85 on the northeast corner. This is the subject site right here. You've got Bell Creek subdivision to the north and west. You have industrial properties to the east, including the railroad tracks, and then some unincorporated Adams County to the south. This application was made under the prior comprehensive plan, and that designation was industrial with an activity center at 104th and Highway 85. The property was originally annexed in 1991 and zoned I-3 with 3 conditions. The first condition stated that this didn't create a vested property right. The second condition stated that I-2 uses are the only uses by right allowed on the property. I-3 uses require conditional use permit. And the third condition is no outdoor storage was allowed. Schlumberger is currently requesting to remove condition C. Conditions A and B will remain. The applicant is proposing to use the northern undeveloped portion of the site for outdoor storage of steel racks, which are 43 inches high, equipment for their business, as well as storage containers and trailers. They're proposing several site improvements with this project, including paving a portion of the site with recycled asphalt, putting in a 6-foot-high simulated stone fence, which exceeds our code requirements, and installing a 20-foot landscape buffer. Here's the proposed site plan. You've got Highway 85 right here, 104th Avenue to the south. This is the existing building on site. It's proposed to stay the same. Nothing will change. There's existing parking on the site in this area. The applicant is proposing adding parking along Highway 85 here, and then the storage area in the back. Here's a detail of what the proposed fence will look like. And then the landscape plan, this shows the 20-foot landscape buffer adjacent to Highway 85, as well as that 6-foot fence. The Planning Commission was concerned with the aesthetics in this high-profile corridor of 104th Avenue and Highway 85, especially the visibility of storage on the northern end of the property, and the potential impacts to the surrounding neighborhood, especially Bell Creek. And it should note, at the city's request, Schlumberger did conduct a neighborhood meeting, and that there was no one in attendance that expressed any concerns. Ultimately, the Planning Commission felt that Schlumberger's proposal meets the city standards, would be harmonious with the surrounding area, and meets the intent of the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission recommends that City Council approve the request, and staff can answer any questions that City Council may have at this time.
Okay. Ms. Jeter?
Yes, thank you for this information. I have 2 questions. What is they requested to have condition number C removed. What was that, please?
Condition C was the restriction of outdoor storage. So
Okay.
here's the 3 conditions. No outdoor storage shall be allowed on the property, so they're wishing to remove this condition to allow for storage.
Okay, and would the 6-foot fence be high enough to potentially hide the storage? Or
It should hide most of the storage. It will not cover the trailers and the storage containers completely. They're 8 feet high, but our code requirement states that you can only have a 6-foot-high fence adjacent to right-of-way.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Marino?
Ms. Oxmacher, can you give us a little bit of history about why condition C was placed on the property to begin with?
When the property was originally annexed, it was actually considered for a correctional institution, so I'm unclear as to why they prohibited outdoor storage, but I believe it was due to the comprehensive plan's activity center designation on the site.
Mr. Diaz?
And you mentioned that nobody in the Bell Creek neighborhood at that hearing had any reservations towards it.
Correct.
How many people were present at that?
Only 2 people attended the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. McEldowney?
I was just trying to find specific reference in the plan, the landscape plan, to the density of the larger trees that will be placed along that fence line, because that'll obviously help complement the 6-foot height of the fence over
Definitely.
time.
All the tree sizes meet our landscape specifications and coverage, but they don't exceed the requirements.
So rough spacing just for folks on,
It's 2/3 living plant material coverage at maturity.
okay.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes, would it be possible for them to build a berm before they build their 6-foot fence in order to meet an 8-foot requirement? So the fence would still be 6 foot, but they could build a 2-foot berm? I've seen it done in the past, and I was wondering if this site would it be possible?
It would be possible. The code doesn't require it, but it's definitely possible and could be added as a condition.
I would like to, oh, never mind, not right now.
Mr. Benson?
I was going to raise a similar issue, Mr. Bullock. If the storage is going to be 8 feet high, I think that the putting in a 6-foot fence just doesn't sound like it makes a whole lot of sense. Is there any exposure on 104th?
Not from the storage, no.
Right. I mean, the exposure on 104th or the view from 104th is really not going to change from what it is now. Is that correct?
Correct. The site actually has a gate that goes across the parking area that will remain. So there'll be a fenced gate in this area that will block all the storage from view on 104th.
Well, I would certainly go along with what Mr. Bullock suggested, that we try to do something to get it up to 8 feet. And I guess you're saying that the storage is not going to exceed 8 feet. Is that right?
The storage materials will not exceed 8 feet. However, the trailer will be taller, and the storage containers will be taller,
How much taller?
2 feet. And they're allowed by code to exceed that fence requirement.
They'll be 10 feet high.
They'll be 8 feet high.
Well, but I'm saying if we had a 2-foot berm and built a 6-foot fence, would that be the same height?
Correct.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Ms. Teeter?
Yes, only a few in attendance of the neighbors. This would be closest to Bell Creek, is that what you said?
Correct.
How were they notified? And can you share that part of the process with me? And postcards?
Absolutely. We provided the applicant with a list of all the surrounding property owners, I believe within 800 feet of the property, and they mailed a postcard. There's actually a copy of the notice that was sent out in the packet to all those residents. And it was they certified a mailing to us that they completed that.
Well, 800 feet, it may be, legal to do it that way, but I think it should have gone out further to other residents. You have that McDonald's right there, and 800 feet isn't that far away.
Okay.
Mr. Marino?
In the landscape plan that was submitted, are these mature trees that would be planted, or would there be a lag time in which they would serve as cover for the storage while they mature?
So the trees have to meet a minimum size requirement per code. For an evergreen tree, it has to be 6 feet high. For a deciduous tree, it has to be, I believe, a 2-inch caliper, and for an ornamental, it has to be an 1.5-inch caliper. So it'll meet those standards at minimum.
Thank you.
Other comments from council? My concern would be the cost that would be added with the 2-inch berm and whether that would in fact make the difference, being that you're going to come from a high point on the north side and a low point on the south side. You're probably going to wind up with the same problem. Even with a 10-foot fence, you are going to see something depending on where you're coming from. And my concern is that we're going to give them an extra cost item that will not settle what I think they want. They're trying to settle from up here. But it's just my concern. Anyone else? Mr. McEldowney?
Just to follow on the questions about notification, I was just trying to approximate using Google Maps here. Do we know where? Is it from the property line itself?
It's from all the property line.
All property lines. So at that northernmost point, if you look at an 800-foot buffer, that does cover the actual southern, the southeastern corner of Bell Creek. It sweeps clear across the street into that lower portion of the homes.
Mr. Marino?
Just curious if we will be hearing it all from the applicant as well?
Yeah, the applicant's representative, Rod Middleton, is here to address council and also answer any questions.
Okay. Good evening, sirs.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the City Council for seeing us this evening.
Okay. I just need a name and address just for the record, though. Thanks.
Rod Middleton. My address is 9251 104th Street, Commerce City, Colorado.
Thank you.
Anyway, while we're getting set up here, I'd like to thank the City Council for seeing us this evening and for your consideration of this zoning change. Just a brief history of Schlumberger. Just 3 years ago, we purchased this property that we currently reside on. We became members of this community. It was originally zoned I-3 heavy industrial with restrictions. Now, one of the things I'd like to point out, if I might, is when we purchased the property, this is what it looked like. It was in a bit of disrepair. We believe we've been good corporate citizens. We've done everything we can to comply with every requirement that we've known. We've maintained the property to a very high standard since we've been there. We've been good neighbors. We began this restoration project approximately 3 years ago. We moved into the property just over 2 years ago. We've not had any issues with the city at all. And in accordance with the approval criteria, we believe that we've met all the criteria that we've been asked for. We believe that this will be aesthetically pleasing. It'll be a good buffer for our neighbors to the west in Bell Creek. It'll be an excellent transition from the residential to the heavy industrial. And lastly, we believe that we'll have a green living fence in addition to this material that we plan on using to build the fence with. We believe that that'll be much, much more important is the green that you'll see in that transition along the Highway 85 corridor. You can take a look here. What we have today, this is the property today. This is what the property looks like. We'll have the fencing material here across the front, all the way down the side, really down through here. We're going to apply all these trees in here per the specification of the city.
If I might, I'll just show you some of the trees of maturity. We do have our landscape architect here who can answer specific questions, but meeting the specifications of code for the planting material size, some of the trees that Joseph brought that are listed in the code as being those approved by the city at full maturity. You can see that we quite the landscape along that.
I think there's one more there, Joel. Yeah. This is sort of a before and after photograph as well. Are there any questions that you might have for us this evening?
Is that the 6 foot that you're showing there?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Marino?
Thanks for your presentation. In your letter of intent, you list that you believe that one of the project advantages for the city is that it will result in an increased tax base. How do you envision that the landscape along the north border will result in increased tax base?
Well, number one, thank you for that question. You know, since we've moved in here, we've had quite an impact on the taxes, not only the taxes that we pay to the city, but we have quite a large employment. We have about 200 employees that we employ at the facility that are all excellent wages that we pay. Many of those employees live within the city of Commerce City. In addition to that, when we first moved in, we moved into an old property east of this, which is north of 104th Street, near the fire station, while we were developing this property. So we believe that once this property, that we can fully utilize the property, that we can continue to grow our business to a larger extent than it is today.
Understood. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. How long, well, what's the total length of this fence?
I think it's about 1,000 feet along the whole property.
How much more would it cost to build that 2-foot berm?
We've not made that pricing. We tried to comply with the city code, and we've not priced that out. Everything that we priced out was within the city code.
Do you think maybe your landscape architect might have a handle on construction cost or something like that?
I don't think our landscape architect could handle that question because this is more of a construction question.
Okay.
But I do believe that, quite honestly, that the amount of foliage we're going to have, the number of trees we're going to have, and as you're traveling north and south along Highway 85, I do believe that the foliage is going to be the buffer that we'd like to see for a green living transition from Highway 85 into the storage area.
And are these pictures for us to keep? Because I'd like to have these marked as an exhibit and introduced into evidence at this proceeding. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Does that take a motion, Bob? What is that?
I can do that administratively. How many pictures are there?
I think there's 5 placards.
5 placards?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll mark those, Mr. Mayor, then exhibits A, B, C, D, and E.
Thank you.
And if you would do that, or I'll do it if you bring them to me, I'll mark each of them in that order.
Also, like, 2 of these are simply the plans that you would have in the packet.
Okay.
Yes.
I was concerned mainly about the trees, and the reason is because we've had people in the past, and I'm not speaking about you individually, that have shown us, here's what we plan to do, here's the plant life that we plan to put in here.
Yes, sir.
And when it finally gets built, it's something a lot less, such as what we've got out there on that Quebec Parkway. And I'd just like to have this as part of our record, because that'll look great if you have these trees all along.
I understand your concern, Mr. Benson. We've been good corporate citizens. I would encourage you to go by and look at our property today.
No, there's no question about that.
We have done everything that we've known to do, quite honestly, happily, to comply with all the codes that we've been applied to us. We've done everything above board. We've met all the time requirements, all the reporting requirements. We want to be a good citizen.
Do you think that adding the 2-foot berm would make this project impossible? Do you have any idea about that?
I don't know that it would make it impossible, but it certainly would add quite a bit of expense to the property. And like I said, I think, quite honestly, the bigger question is the amount of trees that will be planted and the density of those trees, so that we have a nice green living fence. To me, that's much more important than this material. This material is a good material, and we picked this because we believe it'll be superior to wood, and we believe it'll be a better sound barrier than wood.
What is the total project cost of this?
It's in the neighborhood of $300,000.
All right. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Certainly.
Mr. McEldowney?
Thank you very much for appearing tonight, sir. And I will just quickly comment on the improvements that have been made to the property. It's quite a transformation since you've taken ownership, and I think it has played a great role in helping enhance that corner. I also think the selection of the material makes great sense from a wear perspective as well. I guess one quick question I just want to raise to planning relative to the 6-foot fence and the buffer. If memory serves, I'm just trying to visualize that intersection. I think the road bed is actually slightly lower than the the side of the road or the area at which this fence would be constructed. So I know we're talking about a 2-foot buffer, but I think there's almost a 2-foot height difference between the roadbed and the surface at which the fence would be constructed, which creates, I guess, a forced perspective, meaning if I'm driving along, and I think this is important for council to hear, based on where the fence would sit and based on the current elevation of the side of the property, I think what you're going to experience as a driver moving down Highway 85 is your line of sight is looking up. And so even if it's a 6-foot fence and there sits an 8-foot high or taller item behind it, I think your line of sight is going to shoot over that. And that in conjunction with a living buffer, as we've heard, and trees at the density that were depicted in that picture. Granted, they're not going to look like that at point of planning. They're going to mature to that point over time. I think it's, in all respects, a superior visual experience to what we see today, which is that entire portion of the property that exposes to Highway 85 is visible today. So even if there were elements of storage or elements of vehicles that were visible in some fashion, I don't think completely obscuring all of that activity is a reasonable consideration. I think the level of buffering that's being proposed would be far and away better than what we see today. And not go so far as to completely hide or suppress the fact that there is a business operating behind that wall. So I just, for planning's sake, before I go too far with my assumption, is that accurate? I never got your answer right.
You are correct. There is approximately a 2-foot ditch that runs along this area. And just for some background information, staff did consider the 2-foot berm as potentially requesting that as a requirement for this project. And it does kind of interfere with the operational space of this site, as well as potential drainage of First Creek through here. So that's why staff didn't require it as part of this submittal.
So there's a technical consideration there that we need to account for.
I still think it's possible, but.
Okay. I didn't know if you have any comments or questions on top of that.
No, I tend to agree with you, quite honestly. I do believe that once this is in place, the view along Highway 85 will be much improved. Much, much improved. The other thing that will do, there's a few things over on the old property that we move back and forth on a several times a week basis from one facility to another facility. If we could use some of those on those low racks that will be behind the fence, that will allow less traffic on 104. Mm-hmm. We think it'll be safer and certainly more efficient for our operation. We see it as an improved safety issue. And quite honestly, if we don't do anything to the property, that's what we're going to see from now on.
Yeah. So one last question relative to the fencing. We've talked a lot about the portion of the property that's exposed to Highway 85, but the very northern edge, the small portion of that property line that returns back toward the tracks, is that accounted for in the fencing as well, or will that remain open?
I don't recall. I think that remains open at the present time, but if it needed to be closed, I'm sure we can close that up. There will be a gate there.
It actually is closed.
Is it closed?
It wraps around on the north.
Okay,
there
great.
is fencing across the top, but there's a little bit additional property to the north that will not
Right,
be
so
fenced.
that small narrow triangle doesn't look very usable from the imagery.
No.
I don't imagine there's much you could do on that.
No.
So that'll remain, and that's maintained, I believe.
It'll be
right?
maintained. That's the key thing. We're going to maintain that property just like we do along the front. And there's safety reasons for having an access on that north end of the property. So there'll be a gate up there. I do remember that.
Okay.
But we'd need to maintain that to be able to exit the property or enter the property at that point.
Okay, but effectively traffic moving southbound or the residents along that side of the Bell Creek neighborhood would see that same
They'd
fence
see
line.
this. Yes.
With accounting for that gate. Great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I just live just north of where you are, and let me tell you, the difference between then and now is, I can't even compare them. And that site that we're talking about now had been, they used to have pipe there, they used to have steel there, just every place. I don't have any problem with just doing this fence the way you've got it scheduled.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would welcome any of the city council that would like to attend, come through for a tour. Our facility is open. We would love to have you come in and see what we're doing there. I think you'd be quite amazed at our actual operation there. It's very, very clean, very neat. It's a state-of-the-art facility for Schlumberger.
Okay. And we're
Mr.
glad
Mayor?
you're here. I still have a couple more people, but go ahead, Mr. Gaylor.
Okay, my question related to maintenance of that, the growth of those trees.
Yes, sir.
Will you have any irrigation problem for those trees?
I think there's an irrigation system that goes along in there to make sure that those get irrigated, particularly until they get, they've taken root. Because our goal is for those trees to be beautiful,
Right.
not to die.
Well, the city has had problems with landscaping that looked beautiful when first planted, not being irrigated, and before long,
Yes, sir.
you can imagine what it looks like, so. that's why
Irrigation
the
is
question.
required as part of the landscape plan, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Flannery, do you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Mr. Middleton, it seems to me there's some concern with the containers, the 8-foot containers. Where on the property are they to be located? Are they a periphery, or are they on one side, and how many
You
are
will
there?
look right there where the mouse is, right in that area, right there. What we'd like to do, there's a few trailers that we'd like to park there from time to time, and that would be the area that we would like to store those, right nestled up against that fence. The property to the north of the drainage ditch there, that's where the racks would be. And really, we want to start out with all the racks over on the west side of the property, right behind the fence.
Are there any logistical issues with moving some of the 8-foot trailers more central to that property, or even further to the east?
I believe that they would suit us better to be particularly more not viewable, to have them right by the fence. We looked at that from a elevation perspective, and that looks like the best location. While it is closest to the road, it's also protected by the fence and the trees that will be along that area.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes, sir, Mr. Middleton. I was looking at your lighting, and do you run a 24-hour operation?
That's correct. Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, as a lighting and noise, what your lighting engineer is going to put direct down lighting on that, so the lighting does not reflect into the neighborhoods?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and the noise factor for a 24-hour operation, putting the racks in and storing what's in the racks, is that noise factor going to be any kind of irritant to the neighbors across the way at Bell Creek?
No, sir, I don't believe that will be the case. In fact, typically, I won't say every time, most of those movements are going to happen during daytime hours. The lighting is in there for safety when we have material stored in the back, to be able to see back there, because it will give us a better view having that material back there. We'd like to be able to see back there, but it won't be, I don't think it'll be injurious to the community, the way that's presented. We had our architects design that lighting with that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
Mr. Marino?
Ms. Oxmacher, the fence that's currently located on the boundary of this property, how high is that fence, the chain link fence?
I believe it's only 4 feet high.
Okay.
And it will be removed.
Great. And I noticed maybe here on Google Maps Street View, might be an old picture, but there appears that there's also barbed wire on top of that fence. Would that be included on the new stone facade, or no?
We actually, my name's Joel Mayo, and I'm here with Schlumberger, but we actually, during the process and talking with Ms. Oxmacher and the staff's first comments, addressed that as well. That fence actually belongs to CDOT, and you're talking about the stranded barbed wire fence that's down below it, and that signifies the edge of their right-of-way. And we've talked to CDOT, and they are happy to have us remove that as long as we tie in at the end of our run so that there's no loss of their right-of-way fencing to the north of our property. But we would be removing that as part of this. It would interfere with the landscape.
There is also an existing 6-foot-high chain link fence behind that.
So there's 2 fences currently?
Yes.
Gotcha. And with my concern, I think Mr. Bullock presents an interesting viewpoint on the 2-foot berm idea, but is there also issues within our codes that if we have that 6-foot requirement, I imagine along public right-of-ways for a reason. Would that be, would that be an issue with our codes, making that fence taller than 6 feet or 8 feet?
The berm would not make that an issue, but if the fence were to be 8 feet high, then it would require a fence height variance.
So it only addresses the actual height of the fence, not
From the grade, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, thank you. Sir, what is Schlumberger's business? I know traditionally it's been drilling mud, but I don't think that's what you're doing at this location, is it?
No, sir. Schlumberger's traditional business is well known really as wireline logging. And today we own many, many different pieces of business. This particular business is a directional drilling business, and we typically bring short, 30-foot or less pieces of tubular materials into the facility. We work on them inside the facility and then prepare them for the next job and then ship them back out. Typically that's on 18-wheeler type trucks. Some lowboy trucks are used as well.
Is your main office in Houston?
We have a main office in Houston and in Paris and in Dubai.
Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Ms. Teeter?
Yes, I want to thank you for your presentation as well, and I agree, I think the site will look a lot better than it currently does. One last question that I have, the nightly operations, what do they consist of? Noise, maybe?
No, I would tell you that typically what happens is like this time of the day till maybe even midnight, there will be maybe a truck come in, it backs into the building. We load the trucks inside our building, and then the truck simply exits the building with a load.
And they hear that anyway. I mean, that's
They're doing
part
that
of traffic,
today.
so.
They've been doing that for over 2 years. But all trucks come into the building, they back the trailers up a ramp into the building. Once it's inside the building, they secure the loads, they offload all the materials. Then there's this one door that everything that's loaded out comes out an exit door.
Okay,
But
thank you,
that's
sir.
all done indoors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Marino?
A couple more things, I promise. I think that in terms of what Councilwoman Teeter brought up, I think that there is some nice opportunities to mitigate that noise by putting in a solid fence rather than a chain link fence. I think, with what you've proposed, I think that the noise mitigation will be there. That will be an aspect of it. I did have a question about, to planning staff, will the construction of the landscape along this area, obviously there's already a lot of construction going on there with the widening of 104th, would that affect traffic in any way?
It shouldn't. All the new landscaping is going to go within existing property lines, so it won't impact any of the right-of-way along Highway 85.
Great, thank you.
Seeing no further comments, thank you. Appreciate you coming. Right now, I'd be open to is there anyone in the audience that wishes to testify on this particular matter? Oh. Yes. So if there's not, I will close the public.
Guillermo Serna, 14122 East 102nd Place. In stopping by the railroad tracks for 45 minutes straight, you watch this place and you hardly even know that it's there. My only concern is that every time people are going to be coming to you, you're going to be mentioning this 8-foot fence, and everybody's determined to put a 6-foot fence. Why don't you just change the standard? It's a new annexed area in that whole area, right in the center of residential. You should be planning so that this standard that this gentleman is putting is taken care of by everybody else that you are going to be selling property to or business to. Every time I hear business people come, you talk about 8-foot fences, and everybody applies for a 6-foot fence. You talk about raising it, but nobody does anything. Sometimes it's not the business people's fault, okay? But it's how you approach that planning to get this done right to begin with. And there's going to be more other businesses. My only concern is the weeds. If you take a look at Highway 2, right there by the cement place, those weeds are almost as high as the trees. And that's what's buffing the noise. And we don't do anything about it. We talk about being concerned about all of this, but when those weeds get bigger, nobody does anything about it. So what I'm saying is, don't just speak. Give the administration or the planners or whoever some type of direction to get this done, and let's get it done right so we don't have to waste your time with all of this as to whether it's going to cost more or going to cost less or whatever. If you guys make that recommendation, then it's already set and the price is already there. And if you're going to give them incentives, you probably give them incentives to build a fence 8 foot. But give the community also the opportunity to be communicated with also. This thing about, oh, well, we reached 800 feet. Well, no. It doesn't work that way anymore. We're a city, and we're growing. And my feeling is when something like this comes about, let the whole community know so that they can know that this is coming about. You know, nobody shows up, probably because right now we don't have a newspaper, and people just sometimes don't read what comes to their homes. So there's got to be a better way of communicating these types of businesses. I like what he's done last, but the thing of it is you have to set a standard, and you're not setting a standard. That's all I'm saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Mr. McEldowney, is this for now? Or
It actually wasn't intended to be for now, but I think the comments we just received weren't a response. I appreciate your comments tonight, Mr. Serna, but I need to just respond to a few of those comments. There is a standard. It's a 6-foot fence. They've applied for a 6-foot fence. We're being asked to approve a 6-foot fence. There was some discussion about an 8-foot total height requirement based on some of the uses on that property, and that's where comments came from council tonight regarding adding a 2-foot berm to the height of a 6-foot fence, again, the standard fence. So comments about the 8-foot fence, not applicable in this case. Relative to the 800 feet of notification, I don't know that that is outside of norm for any similar property in other cities.
No, and actually, for the notification in this case, we made sure that all the houses that face or back to Highway 85 were included in that notification and exceeded what our normal 300-foot notification range would be.
Great. So we added 500 feet to the notification radius in this case, which is actually quite good, given that there are effectively no other active properties in that immediate location. I think as far as the concern about weeds on 104th and Highway 2 near the cement plant, noticed them tonight too. It's on my list for comments later tonight. I don't think it's appropriate, sir, to talk about weeds relative to a property that we just had high comments on relative to improvements that have been made and evidence of a track record over the last 2+ years of maintaining a property level to a pristine level of condition. So I think that's why you heard council members ask questions about the irrigation and the concerns about maintaining that plant life. I have a real hard time with the comments raised suggesting that there's an issue when there's not an issue. So with all due respect, thank you for your time tonight, sir. No, sir. I would welcome a call offline.
Point of order, I was asking the mayor.
Mr. Gaylor, I'm going to refer to you.
I don't see a purpose in engaging in a debate on an issue that does not involve this particular application. Now, if the question that's going to be raised involves this particular property and is relevant to the evidence to be considered by the council, then it's certainly appropriate because the public hearing's still open. But if it's not within that realm, then it would not be proper.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to testify on this particular item? Seeing none, close the public hearing. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission. Mr. McEldowney.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Snyder?
Second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the findings and recommendations of the Planning Commission. Is there any discussion, Mr. Marino?
Just a couple more items. I think Mr. Cerna brought up a good point in the terms of actual maintenance of the landscaping. Will that be borne by the property owner?
Yes, it will.
Great. And I think that is the only question I had about that. Thank you.
Okay. Request a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Now entertain a motion to approve Z 539-91-11. Ms. Teeter.
Move to approve Z 53991-11.
Mr. McEldowney.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve Z 539-91-11. Is there any discussion at this time? Discussion. Mr. Marino?
I do it just to annoy you, Mr. Mayor. So just one more question. It's a simulated stone facade, obviously. Is there a lifespan on, because obviously it's made of a plastic material, I think. Is there a lifespan on that? Will it,
There are maintenance requirements in the code that address fencing.
Okay. Thank you.
And I would assume it's very similar to what they have at 96th and Highway 2 now. And that seems to be holding up until the cars hit it. So, yeah. Mr. Benson, did you have a discussion item?
Yes, this was a close question for me, and I know that at the Planning Commission it was a 3-2 vote also, but I think that you've satisfied me that there's going to be enough of a buffer there and enough of a, I guess, a site blockage there once these trees get grown anyway, that I'm satisfied that it's going to be all right.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. With no further discussion, will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads Ordinance Z-539-91-11, an ordinance amending Ordinance Z-539-91 by deleting a zoning condition for the property described in Exhibit A, attached hereto, made a part hereof, and located at 9251 East 104th Avenue, Commerce City, Colorado.
Okay. Had a motion and a second. The city attorney's read the title. Request a roll call vote, please. Vote is 8 yeses. Ordinance passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all coming in. Next item on the agenda is one resolution that was not included on the agenda that requires a separate voice vote. It's Resolution 2011-41, resolution of the City of Commerce City authorizing intergovernmental agreement between the City of Commerce City and Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City. Now ask City Attorney Bob Gaylor to open the discussion on Resolution 2011-41.
This resolution comes before the City Council this evening based upon issues that have arisen involving the Urban Renewal Authority concerning the acquisition of certain property. The City Council, representing the City of Commerce City, is being asked then to approve an agreement between the city and the Urban Renewal Authority that will allow the Urban Renewal Authority to proceed with its efforts to acquire the property on behalf of the Urban Renewal Authority. And this resolution, if approved, will authorize a continuation of those efforts, and staff recommends the resolution's approval.
Okay. Is there any discussion from council? If not, I would, Ms. Teeter, with discussion? Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Bullock, did you have a discussion? Okay. Ms. Teeter?
Yes, move to approve Resolution 2011-41.
Mr. Bullock? Second motion. Good, I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2011-41. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the city attorney please read the title?
Title of Resolution 2011-41, Resolution of the City of Commerce City authorizing intergovernmental agreement between the City of Commerce City and the Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City.
Thank you. Had a motion and a second. City attorney has read the title. May I have a voice vote, please? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, there's one ordinance on the agenda for tonight. It's Ordinance 1866, an emergency ordinance amending the 2011 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by transferring a portion of the unencumbered fund balance in the general fund for the Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City, authorizing the expenditure thereof and declaring an emergency. Will the city attorney please explain this ordinance?
This ordinance is for the purpose of an appropriation of funds that allows the Urban Renewal Authority to continue with its efforts to function with regard to acquiring property for the benefit of the Urban Renewal Authority, and ultimately that will improve the City of Commerce City. So if approved, this ordinance would authorize an appropriation, which is required by law, to transfer funds from the city to the Urban Renewal Authority.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address council on this particular ordinance? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to introduce Ordinance 1866 by council as seated and approve the ordinance on first and final reading. Mr. Marino?
Move Ordinance 1866 on first reading.
Ms. Snyder?
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve Ordinance 1866. Is there any discussion? Mr. McEldowney? Mr. Benson?
Yes, since this is an emergency ordinance, it requires something more than a majority, right?
That's correct. It requires a 7-member vote.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Marino?
That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance 1866. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, an ordinance amending the 2011 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by transferring a portion of the unencumbered fund balance in the general fund for the Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City. Okay, let's start over. An ordinance amending the 2011 budget of the City of Commerce City, Colorado by transferring a portion of the unencumbered fund balance in the general fund for the Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City, authorizing expenditure thereof and declaring an emergency.
Had a motion and a second. City attorney's read the title. Request a roll call vote, please. Okay, I'm showing 8 yeses. Ordinance is passed. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by city staff on the city's focus for the Derby Business District, as well as an update on the partnership with Suncor regarding Derby. Mr. Flannery, if you'd introduce staff to come forward and do the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have 3 different divisions addressing this. Chris Kramer in the Planning Division, Ms. Rhyme Cordero in Intergovernmental, and Economic Development, Brittany Morris. And Ms. will start off.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. We've been eager to bring you back this update on the developments in Derby. What we're hoping to do tonight is to give you a background of what successes have been accomplished, tell you a little bit about what are the current factors and then tell you a little bit more about what our strategies are going to be, and then let you know when we'll be back to bring you a more long-term type of perspective for the Derby District. And with that, I'll introduce Mr. Chris Kramer to give you a little bit of the background and the successes that we've had in the area.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Excited to be here to talk to you about Derby. Most council members are intimately aware of everything that's been going on in Derby as we've all been involved in many steps along the way. Taking just a moment to reflect on where we're at will help set the context for some of the conversations in just a minute about where we're going to be going. And it's good to think about Derby in really two different phases. Starting in 2006, there was really sort of a visioning and planning phase where we set out the blueprints for what direction we were going to go in Derby and how we were going to get there. And if, as council might remember, we had the Derby Master Plan, which is one of our more highly attended public processes that we've ever had. Some of those meetings at El Jardín were attracting upwards of 150 folks. And through that master plan really helped set the table for subsequent documents that help move the project along, specifically the Derby Design Guidelines and the Planned Unit Development Zoning that covers all of Derby. The PUD also then allowed for the establishment of the Derby Review Board, which Councilpersons Snyder and Moreno have served on in the past. The Derby Review Board has really handled a lot of the yeoman's work in regards to design work and approvals in the Derby area. Once that initial blueprint phase or visioning phase was complete, it allowed the city and frankly the Derby Business Association to move on to more of an implementation phase. And one of the big factors in that was the Derby Redevelopment Coordinator. Charlene Meeker made a number of presentations to City Council, and she served in that role for 3 years. It was a position funded by Suncor, and it really allowed a lot of various other projects to occur under her leadership. A couple other big factors. Council actually authorized through its budgeting process some catalyst dollars where the city matched a 50% for businesses that wanted to reinvest in their facades or properties on the outside, not on the inside. Again, with the idea of helping improve the overall image of the Derby area. And to date, that's been fairly successful. In addition to that, City Council also allocated dollars to go towards 72nd Place in Monaco for the Derby Diamond construction project, which is really at the core of the Derby redevelopment area. All this means, all this initial work that's gone on in these two phases has really resulted in a lot of successes that I think the city can share with the businesses that are in the area. And you can see we've talked about some of these already. Additional successes, there's the Derby Resource Center is in place. And as council may be aware, that was staffed primarily by Charlene Meeker over the course of her 3 years here. In addition to that, it also provides a real presence for the area. A lot of the businesses know that when they have questions, they can go to that, to the Derby Resource Center and get a lot of their questions answered. And it also provides a stable presence for that key core in Derby. Joe Riley Park had a number of improvements. The facility looks great. It's much better utilized now than it was 4 or 5 years ago. There's a lot of new businesses in the area, Comfort Dental. La Costa del Rey recently opened up a banquet facility running out of there next to the Derby Resource Center. There's some urban gardens that have popped up in the area. The Anythink Library has opened up in the area, and a lot of its architectural vocabulary takes its cues from the Derby Master Plan. And so in general, there's been a lot of successes. And a lot of those successes have been as a result of working with the Derby Business Association, city staff, and also through the Derby Redevelopment Coordinator, Charlene Meeker. So that hopefully sets a context for the area. With that, I'm going to turn it over actually to Ms. and let him continue on in our presentation.
The next portion of the presentation, it's what we call the changing factors. And it's a quick snapshot of what's occurred and led us to refocus and figure out what the next strategies for the Derby Business District will be from the part of the city and in partnership with the nonprofits and the businesses in the area. Mainly in the fall of 2010, the city applied to Suncor Energy for a new grant that would take us through 3 more years, so it would go 2011, 2012, 2013. And we heard back from Suncor that they were re-examining their community engagement strategy. Ultimately, they came back to us and let us know that although at this point in time, right now, it's not completed and they don't have it finalized, they are aware that they will be changing their community engagement policy. They're looking to do projects that are more transformational, and they're hoping to no longer fund particular positions or particular capital projects. Although they're not completely going away from it, it's not going to be their primary funding. They want to fund what they consider more transformational type projects. Therefore, they denied the grant for the Derby coordinator, which we had submitted. As you know, however, the Derby Business District remains a strong priority, which you've all expressed, and it remains a strong priority for the city and the staff. So we continue to work to put together the right support to maintain the successes that Chris Kramer spoke about earlier. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Brittany Morris to tell you more about what we'd like to do in the future.
Good evening, Brittany Morris, Director of Economic Development, and this is where we turn lemonade from lemons. Our team approach now to Derby. We are going to utilize our existing city staff from multiple departments. This will create an incredible, something's going on with this microphone. Sorry, here I am. Can you hear me okay? Great. This is where we will use a lot of cross-departmental support in order for us to support the Derby area, which is a major priority for all of our divisions and departments. The Derby resource staffing, as Chris and Ms. noted, we used to have one member of our staff staffing the Derby Resource Center. We will now be splitting that up between planning, economic development, neighborhood services, and the housing authority. So you will see a representative from each of these covering a few times a month. We'll have an exact schedule published for you in the future so you know when and who will be staffing that. We will also, as Ms. talked about, we really want to focus on economic development, on the business retention and attraction for the area of Derby. I will be assigning this to an economic development specialist in our division, and we will be working with the existing businesses to help them grow, help them expand, and then also work on our vacancy rate out in Derby and how we can fill those spaces. We will work also with the Derby operational team on that effort. This was a priority that was mentioned in the Economic Development Strategic Plan that unanimously passed in April of 2010, so it's something we will be implementing. We will continue that Catalyst program. That is administered through planning and finance. Specifically, Brian Garner in planning will be administering that. We will also have enhanced marketing and communications for the area. We will work with Michelle Halstead and her team on this effort. We will continue to partner with Community Enterprise. They will also be staffing the Derby Resource Center when the city cannot. Support the Derby Business Association. This is both economic development and intergovernmental relations. Both Ms. and a representation from economic development does attend each meeting for the Derby Business Association. We work with them, and we actually gave them a couple of presentations on this update, and they seem very encouraged and very supportive of our efforts. We will have ongoing event support for Derby Days and Fall Fest and Winter Fest. That's through Parks, Economic Development, Communications, Planning, and Engineering. Everyone helps out, all hands on deck. And then we will continue that landscape and urban infrastructure support through the Parks Department. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. to close us out.
So I'll put the end cap on this real quick. As far as next steps, we will be presenting periodic reports back to City Council with discussion points, and we'll be eager to hear back from you what you think in terms of the progress and in terms of how we are maintaining the successes that we've achieved in Derby. Also, we're going to prepare a long-term strategy, which we hope to present to you within the next 12 to 18 months. Finally, Ms. Morris mentioned that earlier we presented to the Derby Business Association a draft version of this presentation as to not surprise them with anything that was included in the presentation. And although the president, Mr. Albert, was unable to make this meeting because of some family conflicts, he did express to me that he is finalizing a letter to City Council in regard to this presentation with some recommendations, which he will send to staff, and we'll get it out to you as soon as possible, hopefully by the end of the week. So with that, we'll take any questions you have.
Mr. McEldowney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to staff for the update tonight. It's been an awesome experience to watch the evolution of Derby. You know, I think Mr. Kramer referenced the blueprint that was drafted in 2006, and I know Mr. Benson and I came on in 2007, and it seems like just after that we jumped headlong into working through the design guidelines and the PUD, and I can still remember my first visit to the center with the fresh paint and Ms. Osborne in there working feverishly on weekends to make that opening, and here we've seen such a rich enhancement to that community. And I think Ms. Morris made a great point, lemons to lemonade. This is a really interesting transitional period, and we've had so much foundational work done to this point that I actually really like the idea of this team approach. I mean, to me, it creates a much more intimate presence by this team of players in the community. I'm really intrigued by, what sort of fruit this can bear, and so I applaud the efforts that you guys have put into putting this plan together, and I'm eager to see how the long-term plan takes shape. So thank you very much.
Mr. Marino?
Thanks for your presentation. I remain excited about the future of Derby. I think there's a lot of potential there. Something that has been troubling the past couple months, though, is, the Derby Review Board, usually we are hearing cases every month in which businesses are investing in their properties, and the city is matching those dollars because we're committed to making Derby a thriving commercial district. In the past couple months, though, that Derby Review Board has not met because we haven't had any cases. But with that said, I haven't seen any less activity going on in Derby. La Casa is opening up their banquet hall. There's another banquet hall opening up next to the old carniceria and supermercado. So I'm just, my suggestion is that we get in touch with those businesses and we make sure that they know that those catalyst funds are there for anything that they might need in investing in their property.
Ms. Snyder?
Just wanted to add to what Councilman Moreno just said. I know one of the points that it's included in the statement from the Derby Business Association is a request to the city manager's office and also to the economic development and planning departments to perhaps consider putting together either a business roundtable or something similar to the Business Attraction Task Force that would look a little bit closer at what is it that those existing businesses in Derby need to develop, to grow a little bit more, and perhaps go after catalyst funds. So.
Just to follow up quickly, I think that's a good idea just because the needs of the business community in Derby are so specific that I think sitting them all down in one area and really having an open ear to their concerns and what they think, what the future of Derby is, what the direction of Derby is, I think would be a good idea. So, thank you.
Ms. Snyder?
Hi. Well, first I want to echo the comments of Councilman Moreno. Needless to say, I'm extremely excited about the progress that's been made in Derby, and a lot of hard work, and I want to thank everybody that's been involved in that, and I think there's some exciting things to come. So I do agree that we do need to continue to, and I like the idea of having the round table or having those discussions. I'll certainly continue to be a part of all of that, but I really look forward to seeing how far we can really go with this project, because I know great things can be done in Derby, and they already have been, and it already looks so much better. And to see the businesses that have been there for years thriving and participating in the Catalyst Fund program, it's just been really exciting. So just want to commend everybody and say I really look forward to the future, what can be done in Derby. Thanks.
Mr. Bullock?
Yes, I also want to thank all three of you for your presentation and echo the comments of the last two speakers. But I was going to ask, the second banquet hall that is opening across the catty corner, does anyone know who is opening that, who the owner of that is, and if they are applying for a liquor license in there?
Sorry. I actually don't have their names with me at this moment, but they do own an existing facility in Aurora, and they're looking forward to expanding into Commerce City. They have a very reputable business already and would like to expand. I can get you that name.
Okay, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Marino, did you?
Just to follow up, I actually had a discussion with those owners, the business owners, at the Minority Business Association meeting, so I can get you that contact information. As far as I'm aware, they're not applying for a liquor license, but as I said, I can put you in touch with them, and we can clarify that.
Thank you.
Mr. Diaz?
I do want to echo what Councilman McEldowney said. Thank you three for your presentation. I want to echo what he pointed out of how great it is to see the three different departments kind of working together and collaborating. I remember going to the ribbon cutting on this picture about, last fall, I believe it was. I was actually present at that, and I remember how exciting it was, just because it was really cool to see how excited and rejuvenated the neighborhood really felt at that time, and how excited the residents were in terms of that. So I see where this is a big focus. And I think you kind of touched on it. My question was what types of businesses you guys are pretty much targeting the Derby business area, but I feel like you guys have touched on that through that, so never mind on that. Thank you.
Come a long way. Thank you. It's been great. Just finally see the results of all of our hard work. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Next item is administrative council business. Ms., did you have something? Or did you have it? Yeah. Ms. Snyder?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. Want to let everybody know how I've been in touch, of course, with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and just wanted to let everybody know that James Mejia has been appointed the interim leader of, he's actually handling the job for a little while until they can figure out what they're going to do. But I want to thank him for his leadership. He stepped right in, and he's doing a really great job. So I don't know if that was more of a report or a administrative business, but I just wanted to say that we will continue to support his efforts, and just wanted to thank him for stepping forward to work in that interim position. He's doing a great job. The second thing was in regard to discretionary funds. I spoke with City Attorney Gaylor when the school list came out for all of the elementary schools. I assume the middle schools and high schools too, but this was in particular to the elementary schools. And the list for supplies is greater than ever this year. And instead of one item of each kind, they need multiple items of each kind. And I had several parents from Hanson call me and say that they were very fearful of how they were going to be able to manage to get these supplies. And everybody's in uniforms now, so there's very specific clothing that has to be purchased for the kids. And so I was doing some thinking about how I could help. And I talked to City Attorney Gaylor to ask him if it would be possible for me to take some money out of my discretionary fund. I have pretty much everything in it because I haven't spent any of it so far this year, hardly at all. I think I have almost every penny in there. So I was wondering if I could take some discretionary money out and help some families at each of the three schools that are in my area and assist the kids, the parents and the kids. City Attorney Gaylor?
Sir?
Just for the council's information here, my response to Mayor Pro Tem Snyder was that this, first of all, has to be for a public purpose, and I think helping school children in the city of Commerce City would certainly meet that requirement. Expending, because it is taxpayers' money, even though it is discretionary funds, it is taxpayer money. And it needs to be for what you consider for the good of the community. The second thing that needs to be considered, and I do have a policy that you're going to be looking at with, I think it's scheduled for September, dealing with discretionary funds. It is scheduled for September, I should say. I don't think it is. But as it stands right now, your policy is for expenditure of those funds for your purposes, for your travel, for your attendance at committees and boards and commissions where you are not as a whole council going, such as CML or NLC. But what I suggested is that because of the cause, it certainly would be appropriate to bring it before the council and ask for your consensus or approval, and I don't see anything wrong from a legal point of view from giving that approval as long as there are funds in her discretionary funds that are available.
Okay.
I thank you, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Thank you, City Attorney Gaylor. I just, I'm asking council to allow me to do this because I know that things are really tough for families right now. And I just thought if there was something I could do to help get some supplies and some uniforms for some of these kids, that it would be, I would just be grateful for the opportunity to help.
Mr. McEldowney?
I think it's a wonderful idea. I'd love to effectively join in your contribution and help match. I think it's a
Thank you. I
great
appreciate
cause.
that. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. If maybe you would spearhead a group and get in touch with any of us that want to be involved in that.
Okay. Anyone who wants to get involved on council, just let me know.
Mr.
Could we
Gaylor, I
have a
just want to know
motion
that
on
it's
that?
okay.
Let's for a motion, it's all right from a legal point of view, because
And
it is.
I hadn't gotten to that point yet. I was
Okay.
just letting people talk for a minute.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. McEldowney,
I would
make the motion.
be happy to second the motion if Ms. Snyder would
Make the motion.
Yes.
raise it.
I'd like to move that the council allow me to use some money from discretionary fund and any council members that wish to join me in such to allow for using some discretionary money to fund some school supplies and uniforms for children.
Okay. Mr. McEldowney will
Second that motion.
it. So I have a motion and a second. Voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion will pass. Thank you
So
very
I'm
much.
going to have to move pretty quickly on this because school starts pretty quickly. So if anyone who wants to join in, let me know ASAP.
And
Thanks.
that's for School District 14.
That is correct.
Okay. I would imagine the same thing would be open for the other school districts.
Absolutely. If there's a need in the other schools, and I can check
Yeah.
with 27J as well,
Okay.
this is by no means to be
Yes.
leaving out the other school district. If there's a need in that area as well, I'm more than happy to help.
Both school districts.
Absolutely. By no means is it meant to leave anyone out that has a need.
And just to coattail on that, there is an initiative underway in 27J called Fill the Bus, and they actually have buses located throughout the district
Okay.
where they're accepting donations of school supplies as well. So
That'd be great. I'll check into that. Thank you.
given the motion and the passage of the motion, do we then work with, who should we work with directly to determine an amount that we'd like to contribute out of our?
Yes, Jerry, who would I talk with to get that taken care of? I'm sorry, City Manager Flannery.
I would recommend, if you want to know the amount that's remaining in your discretionary, that you call Michelle Rogers.
Okay.
And she
And
can
then-
tell you.
And then we
what's in
could
it.
give her an amount that we'd like to allocate at that same time?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. McEldowney, do you have anything else besides that?
That was
Okay.
all I had.
Okay, I've got a couple of things that I'll probably need the council's approval to have staff do a little bit of work on. I know we are just in the beginning of election season, and with election season comes the fabrications of information, if I could put it that way. A couple of the ones that really are bugging me now that I would request approval from council to have staff look into is presently someone is out there saying that we've taken our reserves from 20% down to 7%, and we're not telling anybody, and we're hiding it, and we're doing all that, and you know, we should be more careful. I don't find this to be true, but I need somebody from staff to be able to actually do that, because I feel it's not right, or because I don't find it in the reports. I'd rather have staff come across and say, here's the real numbers. Mr. Flannery, do you have a comment?
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that right now if you want. Otherwise, we can send it out to you as a council.
It would be great if we could get it into our little newspaper.
Okay.
We could do like an article
Sure.
or something.
We're well in. We're probably close to 23% as far as reserves.
That's what I was thinking.
So,
Mr. McEldowney?
If I can use the mute button. Your comment reminds me of an activity that occurred the last election cycle. We had sort of a fact check, myth check, or maybe that was actually during the annexation that I'm thinking of. We had a concern where there were inaccuracies, and really it doesn't serve anyone to have those out there. So I would actually, if council supports it, think it would be great to have items that come up that are questionable that we could route through staff and have those publicly vetted, or if staff comes across comments, or to the citizens out there, if you have things that seem odd, if we could come up with a mechanism to submit those for an answer. And I would go so far as to suggest that we do so on the website, and then obviously dedicate a small piece of the paper. That would be great.
we called that, I believe, rumor control.
Yeah.
And I think it was effective, certainly during that time frame. One thing I would suggest to the council, if that's going to be the direction to staff, is that we do vet them, so they're not just some red herring that somebody wants us to go down a path and try to manipulate the actual open process that you're trying to establish.
Yeah, and I think that's a key point, and I would just be interested in comments from other council members. I think if there's something that's obviously circulating out there, or if a citizen comes forward with a question and staff can chase down a solid answer and bring that back, I would think it would make sense to share that. I mean, that, I think, comes back. We've heard it in our citizen survey. We've heard it in our one-on-one discussions with citizens that they don't hear what's going on, and so these things emerge because they missed an update or missed a fact at some point along the way. So it would be great to use this as an opportunity to help convey that.
Great. Ms. Cheater?
Yes, Mr. Flannery, the outreach picnic at Pioneer Park is very well attended, and we have a booth there. Is that correct? Maybe have some literature boldly a title of that, and people can like pick that up as if when they go through.
We should be able to put something together. It may not be as aesthetic as if we had more time, but I think we could probably put some
Just
information.
something to catch the attention.
Yeah, sure. And I have two other things that will go along with that. Another one of the things, I pored over all kinds of coffers reports and all kinds of weird stuff trying to put this into some kind of order. But we're getting the same challenge out there where people are saying, we spend so much money in the South, we don't spend any money in the North. When I go through the coffers numbers, those numbers are a whole lot different if I'm reading right, and I've got 23 years of Department of Revenue. But if staff could come up with some kind of a report that says, this is what we've spent here and this is what we've spent there, it could go along the same way with what you're doing there. If we could put it together in a report that says, this is kind of what we've spent, and maybe this is what we've spent it on. I'm a little discouraged sometimes because somebody will tell I don't want to say a lie, but an untruth, and because it goes in writing, all of a sudden it becomes the truth. Where if we could have it and say, you know what, here's the real number. I mean, when I go through coffers, it appears to me that we're spending almost 2-to-1 north to south right now. But again, that's just me going through our budgeting numbers. But if we could do that. The other one, before I go to you, Mr. McEldowney, the other one is Mr. Tinklenberg put together this really nice dollar bill that was actually divided. He had two of them. One of them he actually divided up by the percentage, so 25% was 25% of the bill, so it looked right. If we could include that in with that paper, because I still get people call and say, what are you doing with the $5,000 a year we give you? And I said, no, pull it out, you give us $55. And, you know, if we could put that out there also. This is the time to do it, because what's going to happen is it's election season. And in election season, some people will have a tendency to try to negate some of the good that we've done by putting out information that maybe isn't completely true. Where if we actually say, here it is, here's the numbers, but I know that these are things that are going to take a little time, so I want to make sure that it's okay with council for the staff to do this, but I think it will help not only staff, but council and citizens, because I know there's a lot of citizens out there that realize we're doing a good job, that our departments are doing what they're supposed to do, and we're doing it for almost nothing of what the city gets out of their tax dollar. But that when someone writes enough saying it's terrible and you guys are horrible, it doesn't take much. If there's not that alternate information out there. Now, I'm sorry, now Mr. McEldowney. I want to get everything out so that then it's all out there.
The second point you made is actually related to the comment that I was going to make, which is I have been having lots of discussions with folks relative to the 27J funding. And the first thing they say is, well, I pay such a significant amount to Commerce City today. Why doesn't that go to the school district? And I was just going to say I'd love to see us republish the dollar bill, because, again, I think there is a disconnect between what goes directly to the city, what folks who live in the north are paying into the infrastructure GID, and how that differs from their straight tax to the city, et cetera. And so I think it's all related. We have a fairly complicated tax scheme in the north, and that's not it's we collectively between the school districts, the GIDs, the metro districts, et cetera, and it isn't crystal clear. And so anything that we can put out there to help make that clear would be quite helpful.
That'd be great if we can get it in the newspaper. And now that I'm going back through some of my papers here, I guess it didn't come out of Mr. Tinklenberg's office. Did that come out of one of your offices, the dollar bill? Okay, well, wherever it came out of, it's great because it's visual, and you see this tiny little piece is all the Commerce City got, and that's probably not even paying for part of your police department, I would think, the amount of money that we get out. I mean, it's most of the big companies that are out there, like Chamberlain and some of these others, that are actually paying the bills to perform so we can send out a ACE #1 police department. So if that's okay with council, anybody have a challenge with that? Seeing none, that's great. I wasn't here last week, so I'm just got mouthy tonight. I would like to request that because the election is on November 1st, we do not have a meeting on October 31st because it's Halloween and it's the 5th, not because it's Halloween, but because it's the 5th Monday. Could we plan a extremely short, compact council meeting on the 24th of October and have I don't want to say a going away party, a thank you to the council that is leaving on the 24th? Maybe come up with a cake and punch, nothing fancy.
Is Michelle here? No.
You're already doing it, aren't
we
you?
are already doing it, yes.
See, I knew that.
But we didn't have that thought in mind, so thank you for letting us, giving us a time frame or a date.
Yeah. The reason I picked the 24th is originally I thought about the 1st of November, but that's actually Election Day. It would be nice for the people that are leaving to have their thing. The people who are coming will have theirs 2 weeks after that, so that they don't mix. We had a small challenge last time, because people were coming in, people were going out, and nobody was paying attention to anybody.
Right.
And so this would make it a little easier to go out on the 24th. Does anyone in council have a problem with that?
That's a good idea.
Could we also include Tony Johnson in that?
Sure.
Okay. we can at least make the offer to him. I imagine he would come, but not, Mr. Diaz, that we don't care that you're here, but, okay. And last, but certainly not least, we're in our last 90 days, some of us, and what's going to happen is some of us have had pet projects that we would like to see at least out there before we leave, and I'll give you an example as Boys and Girls Club. There's a number of us, and even including Mr. Marino, who has a new person, but Ms. Snyder and I have been kind of pushing pretty hard on it. And if we could get something coming up where we're at and what we're doing, this is going to sound terrible, and I don't mean it that way, and hopefully it comes out the right way. What I would like to see is the council going out to have this list that said, we really were involved in this. As an example, when King Soopers opens, when King Soopers opens, at least 3 of us are not going to be there, though we had a lot to do with it. The next council will naturally take credit for it. But just to be able to say, you know what, you guys did pretty well, we're doing this with Boys and Girls Club, that's a big deal, and everything's starting to fall in place for those kind of jobs. So if it would be possible, if the people who are leaving will be able to stay in contact with both Consul and Mr. Flannery as in the next 90 days to say, these are the projects we'd really like to see where we're at. As an example, when we got the one on Derby today, the next report's going to be 12 to 18 months. That's a long time after we're gone. Though, anybody sitting here, including the people in staff, realize that it's only been the last 6 or 7 years that Derby has started to go. It's really moved. Prior to that, it was, we're going to do something, we just don't know what yet. I'm not really looking for anything, but just, maybe just something that says this is where we're going on some of these
absolutely
old things. Mr. Bullock.
Yes, what I was going to talk about is we have a 5th Monday in August, and we have Labor Day the next weekend. And I just want to make sure that we have put forth the cancellation of both of those meetings, because I don't remember, we might have and I forgot, but I know that we don't have a meeting on the 5th Monday, and we won't have a meeting on the next Monday, so that'll be 2 weeks in a row without meetings. I just want to make sure our schedules and everything that we are planning for accounts for those 2 meetings not being on the calendar.
Mr. Mayor and Councilman Bullock, one of the items that I was going to bring up under reports has to do with the budget, and so we want to send you a schedule this week, and then we actually have the kickoff next week of the budget, and most of you have been through that. I know that Councilman Diaz hasn't been, but typically we dedicate the month of August to the budget process, and so each meeting on a Monday night, it seemed to work out a lot more thoroughly and better to have each Monday night be an actual budget discussion, covering a lot more territory than you could in, let's say, in a 2-day retreat, and have a lot more time to absorb and ask questions over that time frame. Traditionally, there's always, it seems to be anyway, a 5th Monday in August, and traditionally we've used that as a budget meeting. We don't have to. Certainly not a requirement. It's one of those things. It's at the discretion of council to either say we should do it or not, given that we have a holiday. There's challenges this year, I think, with the budget retreat. We're looking at September 12th, which is, I know Councilman Benson runs into this on an annual basis with the E470 conference that you attend. So, I mean, and then sliding it forward is more challenging on the staff, sliding it back. So there's a timing issue with that. Mr. Tinklenberg next Monday night is going to present you with that discussion, but we want to get you a calendar beforehand so you can see that and then have that material when you come next Monday night for discussion. So to answer your question, it's certainly up to the council to do that. And we'll make it work no matter what you ask us to do.
Saying what you just said, and I see where that is going, I would like to have council excuse me for the 5th Monday because I've already planned something where I'll be out of town. Because it seems like I see it already on the calendar that we are scheduling for the 5th Monday, but I had scheduled for us being off because we don't schedule for the 5th Monday.
I would not see any challenge. We never make one meeting be so inclusive that you can't either catch up or get your word in. We all have private stuff. So if we decide to do the 5th meeting, which we haven't yet, that would not be a challenge with you not being there, Mr. Bullock. We've had other people miss days on budget meetings in the past, and they didn't have any problem getting across their message. Mr. McEldowney, did you change your mind? Okay. Okay, we'll go into reports. Mr. Flannery?
Well, that was a big chunk of it.
Oh, good.
I do want to let you know that I have had my budget meetings with the departments. I can't emphasize to you how proud I am of this group. Each year they come to us with only requests that are of absolute need. So it's very difficult to sort through it. I think we have certainly a more positive outlook on the budget, I think, than we've had in the last 4 years since I've been here. So, I mean, things seem to be slowly recovering, but that's the key word, slow, and that'll be a theme that I use throughout this month. But it's been very positive. I'm very, very proud of how they've approached it, and we'll be looking forward to presentations. We've taken your direction at the council's retreat. We do want to bring departments in so that they are presenting to you during the month of August, so you can see that from them and hear the presentations. You have certain challenges that you face in regard to how you want to approach certain revenue enhancement policies and those types of things, ballot measures, and we'll have those discussions coming up this month as well. To end on a very positive note, if you've driven by the King Super site, the sign is up. I know on the email I sent you over the weekend, I said it would be up on Wednesday. I'm glad when they actually get it done before we indicate. They have met the first requirement of the incentive agreement. We have notified them of that in writing. The next is, as I mentioned in the email, in the first week of September for footings. So things are progressing very well there. It's exciting to see. Can't wait to see some structure coming up. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gaylor.
Picking up on what the city manager just reported, the King Supers and Shea had filed a plat with the city for their development, and we did receive an objection to that plat, which meant that if the objection stood, that the plat approval process would go through Planning Commission and City Council before the plat could be approved. Well, we had, when I say we, the staff and I had an extensive discussion today with the objector, and after all was said and done, the objector's withdrawn the objection, which now means the plat can be approved administratively and doesn't have to go through the drawn-out process, Planning Commission and City Council. So we're on schedule, going ahead, but I thought you'd be interested in hearing that news.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to reports. Realize we have a URA meeting after this, so don't anybody get up before we're done. Mr. Bullock.
Yes. First, I'd like to thank the Cultural Council for their music in the park on last week, Thursday, at Pioneer Park. The group Amber Ways played, and it's a family group, and it is a very interesting group because they have twin daughters, the mother, the father, a young man that's 10 years old that plays the violin, and then they have a 6-year-old daughter that they have to call every now and then, and wherever she's at playing in the park, she comes running up and she sings and everything. And the little brother was the same way. They were just fascinated by the batting cages, so they would have to call them and wait for them to show up. But they were a really great group, and so and everybody plays an instrument, and they play banjo, mandolin, guitar, violin, upright bass, and they all sing, and it's all by ear. So when you get to be that young and 10 years old and you're playing the violin like Charlie Daniels, you're pretty good. Also, we had ADCOG in Brighton on Wednesday, the 27th, and that was very interesting because the Economic Development Coordinator gave us a report of what Brighton is doing, and to listen to him, you would think that Brighton has reinvented the whole scene of economic development, that there isn't anything that they aren't doing in their city, and they're doing it better than everybody else. But, and I say this but with a big B, the key to this week was the graduation of the first annual Commerce City Police Camp. 36 kids went to this camp, ages 11 to 15. And if you could have seen them, they just got back right before graduation. They came in dirty. They put all this bags and everything right outside the door here. And they came in and they were separated into 2 platoons. The officers that went up with them was Officer Fender, Officer Ortega, Officer Vasquez, and Officer Dubbins. And then from the park staff, it was Lisa Norholt and Jenna Johnson. And there's another lady that went with them, and I cannot remember her name, and I'm sorry if you're watching on, I'm sorry. But if you would have seen all 36 of these kids, it was just the most fantastic thing they'd ever done in their life. Everyone said they didn't care how dirty, how much rain, anything. They would do it again next year. So next year, count on having 72 kids going up there for it. They got to shoot. They got to cast tire casts and footprints casts. They got the fingerprint. They got to do everything. Everybody from the police department would come up at different times and give them classes and different kind of things like evidence and everything. And if you'd have seen the parents, now the kids were excited, but the parents sat there with their mouth open like, why can't I go? And, this is, if every program we had did this, we would have every program that is 100%, because this program, first time, ran a 9-0-100 because it went perfect, and the only thing you could say was the weather wasn't perfect. But everything else worked out, and if we can keep this program going the way it's going and it increase and have every other program model itself after this, we will be the city that everybody else strives to be. But you should have been here. And they had cake and it was great. You should have been here. Okay, that's my report.
Mr. McEldowney?
No report.
Mr. Diaz?
Councilman Bullock already pointed out the Music in the Park concert series, and I appreciate all the residents who attended that. That being said, as you know, we had it every Thursday in the month of July. Last week, the last Thursday of July, was our first one. Due to weather cancellations the first couple weeks, and then on the third week, I think there was illness in the member of the band. That being said, we have rescheduled one for this Thursday, August 4th, at Pioneer Park again at 6:30 p.m., and we got that all set up with Parks and Rec, so that is all set, so we would love to see as many of you guys there. Thank you.
Ms. Teeter?
Yes, just 3 things. I also attended the ADCOG dinner that Brighton hosted, and they are a very proud city. I'm going to put it more mildly. Also, I've received so many emails and phone calls about the upcoming King Supers. I think I shared that with you via email. And Councilman McEldowney said that he was in back of a car this evening that was passing the site where the sign was, and she almost went off the road. And lastly, to you, Mr. Clements, and to staff, and having the money in the budget, the CIP budget, the Highway 2 and 96th Avenue intersection is bringing very many praises, and it's just beautiful. Businesses are bragging about it and all. Very good job, well done. Thank you.
Ms. Snyder?
Excuse me.
Oops.
Thank you, Chief. I forgot to thank the most important person of all. Thank you, Chief, for everything you did to put that program together.
Okay. Ms. Snyder?
Yes, I'd like to echo what Councilwoman Teeter said. There are people calling and writing and stopping us in the current King Superstore saying they can't wait until they get to the shop at the one in the north area, in the northern range. So very excited. Everybody's really excited about that and can't wait. I wanted to thank the Cultural Council for the music in the park. I hope the rest of the summer music series is rain-free. And lastly, I attended the Adams City High School All-Alumni Mixer, which was Saturday night at Bar Louie, and had a pretty good turnout, and everybody seemed to be having a good time. So that's all. Thanks.
Mr. Benson?
Yes, thank you. I also went to the ADCOG dinner, and I've got to agree with what Mr. Bullock said. It was a very impressive presentation on its face. They even said that they were getting 138,000 square foot King Supers at the corner of Bromley and I-76. I don't know whether that was just to show that it might be bigger than our 123,000 square foot store. I'm not even sure that they knew about our 123,000 square foot store. But anyway, I guess we'll see if that store at Bromley and I-76 actually goes in. I don't know. We had an E470 meeting last Thursday. It was kind of an unusual meeting. I've been going to those meetings for 4 years. It was the first time we didn't have a quorum show up, and so 2 members had to vote by phone, which I didn't even know that they could, but we found out that they listened to things that were being presented by phone, and we did have a vote on only 2 issues, but that was about it for that. And of course, King Supers, it's all happened in the last week. I'm walking around talking to a lot of people, and that, of course, is the number one issue. You know, we've heard that. Have you driven by that intersection? And I know that there's a sign out there, but right now it's behind some kind of a storage tank. And I'm wondering if we can move that sign closer to the intersection about where that available sign is.
Actually, Councilman Benson, we're actually, they're going to move the water tank.
Okay.
So the tank will actually be moved to another location.
It would be better to have it closer to the intersection so that people who are traveling on Chambers could also see it, because now it's about maybe 60 or 70 yards west of Chambers on 104. Is that a possibility? Or?
I believe there may be a possibility of another sign.
Another sign?
Yeah.
All right, a bigger one, okay. But that's going to be a great day. As I said, it'll be the biggest event to occur in the history of Ward 2 in this city. And there'll only be one event that will top that, and that's when the store opens. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Marino?
No report.
Whoa, that was so easy.
Excuse me, Mr. Natal?
Yes.
If I may, I just want to announce that tomorrow morning, beginning at 8 a.m., nomination petition packets are available in the city clerk's office. They will be beginning at 8 a.m. That is also means that those people picking up petitions can legally start walking the neighborhoods and collecting signatures. So I just wanted to let the public know that those are available in my office beginning tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Probably the large thing that I had done in the last couple of weeks is attended 2 meetings on the medical waste facility that's going into Adams County. We're mostly there to pick up information. It's in the county. It's being handled by the county. I guess my biggest disappointment was that the owner representative was not as customer service friendly as I would have expected someone to be at the meeting, and that was kind of a little bit of a disappointment. But you know, it's going to go forward. The next meeting is the 25th with the Planning Board in Adams County. So, and then tomorrow, National Night Out, and there's multiple places throughout the city. I'm actually going to be at the one at Bell Creek. They've asked me to do a few of the little things that are going on over there. So don't anybody leave. I'm going to call this meeting, and if there be no further business before this board, we'll be adjourned. But Ms. Bauer, you have a couple of minutes to put us into a urban renewal setting. You got it. Does anybody need a quick break? Quick, because if you're not here, well, we're throwing you out of that anyway, so you can't vote. But yeah, not a problem.
Renewal Authority. It's never been questioned, and he's always been delegated as such to sign certain documents for the Urban Renewal Authority, but now these bylaws make it clear that he is authorized to conduct business on behalf of the Urban Renewal Authority as the executive director. So these bylaws will clear up those kinds of housekeeping matters that have been pending over a period of time.
Okay. Any questions for City Attorney? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion at this time. Mr. Marino?
Move approval of Resolution 2011-02.
Okay, Ms. Teeter?
I second the motion.
A motion and a second to approve Resolution URA 2011-02. Is there any discussion? Mr. Benson, did you have discussion, or was it for something else? Okay. Request of voice.
And title?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Will the city attorney, boy, I hope I get this in the next 11 meetings. Will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, Resolution Approving 2011 Amended Bylaws of the Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City.
Okay, been a motion and a second. City attorney's read the title. Request a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. Next is Resolution URA 2011-03, a resolution of Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City authorizing intergovernmental agreement between the City of Commerce City and the Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City. I'll now ask City Attorney Gaylor to begin discussion to review Resolution URA 2011-03.
The only point I want to make with this document is to reassure City Council that we're dealing with an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Urban Renewal Authority. So obviously, you've already approved the document on behalf of the city. Now you need to approve the document on behalf of the Urban Renewal Authority. Same document, we just need to have an action now by the Urban Renewal Authority, which authorizes the Urban Renewal Authority to proceed with its efforts to acquire certain property in the City of Commerce City that is deemed to be in the best interest of the city if these discussions and closing do take place.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion. Ms. Snyder?
Yes, move approval of Resolution URA 2011-03. Council is seated.
Ms. Teeter?
Second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution URA 2011-03. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the city attorney please read the title?
Title reads, Resolution of Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City authorizing intergovernmental agreement between the City of Commerce City and the Urban Renewal Authority of the City of Commerce City.
Okay, been a motion and a second. City attorney has read the title. Request a voice vote, please. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, the same. Motion passes. There be no further business come before this board. Meeting adjourned. Drive safe going home.